Well, the NFL has released an entertaining schedule for the Vikings. The highlights include an opening game in Chicago on Monday Night Football. The Philadelphia Eagles, and the defending Super Bowl champs, they come to town in October. It's their first visit here since 2019. The Vikings play their border rival, the Green Bay Packers, twice late in the season, and the Vikings play on Christmas Day against the defending division champion, Detroit Lions. That's a 3:30 home game that'll be on Netflix. Head coach Kevin O'Connell's pretty excited.
But what I do know is the NFL values the Minnesota Vikings. We're on a lot of different networks. We're standalone games. We're international back-to-back weeks. We've got a Christmas Day game, Netflix, Prime, CBS, Fox, NBC.
And so, of course, we had to bring in our Vikings insider, Cody Benjamin, to talk about the whole schedule. Good morning, Cody.
Thanks for having me back on. It's finally fun to have some dates on these things so we can actually look forward to real games happening.
I know. So let's go through the schedule and maybe get some of your predictions for every game. Okay, week 1. Vikings at Chicago in J.J. McCarthy's first NFL start. What are your predictions there?
Yeah, it's a true toss-up. I mean, it's the Bears are going to be a little bit better. They have better supporting cast, for Caleb Williams. I could see it going either way. I picked the Bears in this one just because on the road, again, this is going to be the first real snaps for J.J. McCarthy, in the NFL. We don't know Jordan Addison's availability because of his off-field stuff, so I'm going with the Bears in week 1.
Okay, Bears in week 1. How about week 2, Vikings versus Falcons?
Yeah, there may or may not be a Kirk Cousins factor there. I mean, probably not. It was a big hyped game last year, and the Vikings beat up on the Falcons. I think if you lose to the Bears in week 1, you come back, have the home opener under the Sunday night lights. I think it's a prime spot for the Vikings to take that one. So I have them beating Atlanta.
Amazing. Week 3, Vikings versus Bengals.
Yeah, this one I circled as, could this be this year's, version of what last year's Texans or 49ers game was, where we went into the year saying, oh boy, the Vikings aren't going to have a shot here. That's a contender. We don't know. I mean, Joe Burrow, his availability has been in question over the years, but if the Bengals are healthy, I like the Bengals. They have a lot of firepower. Justin Jefferson's old college teammate, Jamar Chase, on that side. So I like Cincinnati there.
Okay, and week 4 and 5 are exciting. They are overseas. Week 4 is Vikings versus Steelers in Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, and if Aaron Rodgers is playing for Pittsburgh, we don't know yet. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers knows, but if he is, a lot more drama for that game, not only because it's an old NFC North rival, but because we know the Vikings kind of flirted with Aaron Rodgers this offseason. Regardless of whether Rodgers is there, though, I think the Vikings are a better overall team than the Steelers. I think that especially if they drop that week 1 game to the Bears, I think they kind of even it out here by beating the Steelers in across the border.
And staying across the border in London for week 5, we have Vikings versus Browns.
Yeah, never say never, but if you're going to beat anyone in the NFL, it's probably going to be the Browns this year. They have an okay defense, but not a whole lot else. A lot of questions at quarterback. So I think it's possible the Vikings, everyone gets into a tizzy. Oh, we've got back-to-back international games. I think it's possible the Vikings just go 2-0 there, come back and enjoy their bye week afterward. So I like them beating the Browns.
And quick question, do you have any plans to go watch the games overseas, or is that a little much?
You let me know. If I find out that I'm being, shuffled over there, I will let you know.
Oh my gosh, we'll absolutely chat then. That'd be awesome. Okay, week 6, they come home, bye week, a little bit of a break. Week 7, we have Vikings versus Eagles, which of course are the defending Super Bowl champions. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, this is kind of the start of a brutal stretch. The bye week, it does come at a nice time because you're coming off the international games, but you're going to need this bye week because, I don't know if Vikings fans are going to like me after the next couple of picks we make here because this is the toughest part of the schedule. And I think, can you beat the Eagles? Sure, but they're the reigning champions for a reason. I mean, unless there's a catastrophic injury in Philadelphia, I think they are just formidable. I mean, they can run the ball well with Saquon Barkley. They have a really physical defense. I think it's going to be a challenge for J.J. McCarthy, so I picked the Eagles for that one.
Okay. Well, week 8, we're taking on the Chargers on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a very winnable game, but again, you're playing a tough team in the Eagles, and then you turn around on a short week and fly to Los Angeles to play a Chargers team that is also known for just being physical. They play old school style football. Najee Harris, Omarion Hampton, two running backs that the Chargers added. I like Jim Harbaugh's Chargers in that one, so that's two straight losses for the Vikings coming out of the bye.
All right. Well, hopefully they can. I don't know. What do you think about Week 9, where they take on the Lions?
Yeah, I mean, you can see where this is a tough part. I mean, Eagles at Chargers. Now you got to go on the road to Detroit. Now you have a mini bye coming off the Thursday game. So I do think here's the deal. I'm going to give the Vikings the loss here to the Lions, but I do think they're going to split the series with the Lions. So they will even that up later. But I think if Detroit is at full strength, I still just think they are one of the heavyweights in the NFC.
Okay. Week 10. Almost halfway, pretty much halfway there. Vikings versus Ravens. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I could. This is a game where I could see the Vikings potentially stealing it. But this is where I think, if you hit four straight losses here, which I do think they will, Baltimore is a Super Bowl contender. Maybe you start to see some impatient fans starting to say, well, maybe we should have kept Sam Darnold. But I think it's just be patient. Remember that this is year one with JJ McCarthy, a new quarterback. I do like Baltimore, though, and so that drops the Vikings 2 games below 500 at this point.
Okay, and week 11 and 12, we've got some Midwest rivals. Week 11, we have Vikings versus Bears.
Yeah, again, as I mentioned earlier, I think if they lose that week one game in Chicago, I think they'll split that series. So I think they come back and take one against the Bears to kind of end that losing streak.
What about the Packers for week 12?
That one is a little tougher. I think that Green Bay is one of maybe 5 NFC teams I could see, being in the Super Bowl mix, just at this point in the offseason. And also I just think the Packers, they might be better suited for that cold weather late November game. Josh Jacobs, that ground game that they have, it's a little more physical than what the Vikings have had on the ground. So I'll go with the Packers there.
Okay, and week 13 is kind of
This
fun.
is this is rough, isn't it?
This is a little rough. It would also be rough if they may lose to their former quarterback, Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
They're at the Seahawks. They're in Seattle, taking on the Seahawks week 13. Thoughts there?
Yeah, it's a tough place to play. The Vikings and they won in their most recent game in Seattle, but they've lost 5 of their last 6 when they play in Seattle. I do think Sam Darnold will be motivated, but the question is, will he still be upright? Seattle has had offensive line questions for a while. We saw how that damaged him at the end of his Vikings tenure. He's got weapons, but I still there's just too many question marks for that offense where I think that the Vikings will outlast Sam Darnold in Seattle.
Okay, amazing. We're looking up. Week 14, Vikings versus Commanders.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels coming in on the US Bank Stadium turf. You have a chance to see a Super Bowl team there in the Washington Commanders. I think it's just going to be, that could be a potential shootout, high scoring game. I still think Washington, it's just hard not to give the edge to Jaden Daniels. I mean, a magical rookie season from him. And so I have the Commanders taking that one.
Okay, week 15, we go down to Texas, and the Vikings take
Yeah.
on the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think this is actually a good spot for the Vikings to spoil Dallas's national spotlight. I mean, the Cowboys were not great last year. Dak Prescott has not stayed healthy over the last half decade consistently, and yet the NFL has kind of thrust the Cowboys into this primetime spotlight. I think this is a good chance where you might see JJ McCarthy starting to settle in. We're getting late in the year. Maybe he's finally found a really good groove working under Kevin O'Connell. I think it's a prime spot. They steal one from Dallas on Sunday Night Football.
And then there's a Christmas present for Minnesota Vikings fans. They are at home taking on the Lions on Christmas Day for week 17. And earlier you had Lions winning. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah. It's Christmas. We can't go against the Vikings. This screams to me, I don't know if this will happen, but it screams to me like a whiteout game. I mean, it's great that you're getting it at home, juice up the fan base, make it a whiteout game. It's Christmas in Minnesota. I think that, we saw it was kind of like a track meet between those two teams last year during the regular season, back and forth shootout. I would see that kind of game. And the Vikings, again, with McCarthy settling in, taking that one.
Okay, good. Okay, week 18. Final week here for this schedule. Vikings versus Packers once again.
Yeah, so in this scenario, have them, the Vikings at 8-8 going into the last game of the season with the Packers. Is Green Bay resting any players? They'd have to have a pretty good record to be doing that. I would say so, probably not. I keep going back to this. I think that down the stretch here is probably your best chance to see, remembering that this is year one for McCarthy, that he might finally be settling in. So I do like the Vikings to take that last game. And so whether it's getting into the playoffs or just going into the offseason with 4 straight wins at the end, I think you have something to build upon. But like the Vikings going 14-3 last year, it really did inflate expectations for this team. And it is a good team, but it's such a big question mark at quarterback that I think, it's possible to get to 10 wins, but I think it's a tough schedule. So 9-8 would be a good outcome in some respects.
Yeah, it would. And, we're excited for this season. What are your, biggest goals to see, I suppose?
I think it's just growth under center. I mean, and notice that growth instead of just immediate results. I think that there is some pressure for JJ McCarthy. I mean, the Vikings, they let Kirk Cousins walk to essentially draft JJ McCarthy. They let Sam Darnold walk to endorse JJ McCarthy as the quarterback of the present. And so there is some pressure for him to deliver. And they were a team that flirted with the number 1 seed last year. And so there's guys in that locker room, they're not interested in competing 3 years from now. They want to compete right now. So there is pressure, but I think also you just have to look at it with a lens of reality that, again, until week 1, JJ McCarthy has not thrown a single NFL pass in a real game. And so if you can endure this schedule and come out without a losing record, flirting with a wild card spot, I think that is a reasonable outcome for the team.
We're excited. I'm excited to chat with you again on Monday mornings to break down the previous night's games. And it's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that with 14-3 last year, people are like, it's always easy in the offseason to be, oh, we're winning 12 games. We're winning 13 games. It's hard to do that in the NFL consistently. Kevin O'Connell, 13 wins his first year. The next year, 7. Last year, 14 wins. Is he due for a little bit of a drop-off? Maybe, but it's still going to be fun to follow.
Exactly, and that's what we do as Vikings fans. Win or lose, we still follow.
Yep.
Cody, thank you so
Exactly.
much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.